Well, thank you all for coming out today to La Barista. I want to introduce Emma Toom, and I have a lovely bio here for her. Emma is an artist currently living in Detroit Lakes, Minnesota. She's a multimedia artist who makes work on paper consisting of drawing, printmaking, and collage. Toom received her BA in studio art from Winona State University in 2018 and her master's in history from North Dakota State University in 2023. She was previously the associate curator of the Plains Art Museum and visual arts manager of the historic Holmes Theater and the Holmes Art Cellar in Detroit Lakes. Oh, I'm so sorry I read that wrong. Plains Art Museum. She's currently the Outreach Special Events and Visual Arts Manager of the historic Holmes Theater and the Holmes Art Cellar in Detroit Lakes. Her work has been shown in galleries in Winona, Minneapolis, Vermilion, Fargo, Moorhead, and Pittsburgh. So let's give it up for Emma.
Thank you.
So Emma, you have an interesting style of art. I love that you talk in your artist statement about connecting history and art and kind of bringing that history into the future. Can you talk a little bit about how you do that? And you have some samples over here too.
So first and foremost, I am both trained as an artist and a historian. That was something when I was in college. I knew I wanted to do art, and I thought a job to do that with was to go into education. And I did one in-school observation and said, oh my God, that's not for me. So then I switched my major because of a history class that really inspired me, and I never looked back. And one of the great things you learn in learning the discipline of history is how valuable primary sources are, things that come from the past, both how valuable it can be and how useless some things can be as well. And so I just cannot let go of that part of myself of wanting to take things from the past and use them and create relevancy. In some ways, it's like an aesthetic choice. So, for example, this was just a piece. It's a canvas that's wrapped in old court papers from a place in Ohio that I created a very whimsical drawing on, and using it as an aesthetic purpose to put stuff on. You'll see other examples over there. I use prescription paper, I use old library cards, things like that. But then I also use it as almost a form of exploring relevancy and nostalgia and human culture, I guess. So things like, we all have phones with our photos on them now, but at one point, most of us remember how valuable it was to have a physical photo in our hand, right? And for some people, they don't have those anymore, or for some people, that relevancy is leaving, but I try to find that and use that nostalgia as well in using them in important ways. So maybe you look at a photo of a stranger that I use and you think, oh, I don't know this person, but you still understand the value of it because someone else loved that photo once.
I love that. That's very special. As someone who has a 5-year-old who only has one printed photo, I think maybe I need to rethink that. So you also work with cyanotypes. Mm-hmm. Can you explain that a little bit? That was something that was new to me.
Yeah, so a cyanotype is a old process of photography. It was the first, this is an example of a cyanotype for anybody who hasn't seen that before. It is a process where you mix two chemicals that I do not remember the names of. It's like ferric ammonium something. And together, when you mix them, they become UV sensitive, and you can treat different surfaces like paper, wood, fabric is a big one people have done. And you can take negatives like I did with this and create an image, or a lot of people like to use plants because there's translucent quality to them. I have a number of examples with plants on them as well. And you can create images. This was the first blueprint method before Xerox existed. This was how blueprints were made in mass for construction and things. And it was also a way that people used photography as well for a long time. So it was something I picked up recently because it looked fun, and I've taught a few classes on it, and I will in the summertime at the Holmes Art Cellar. So if you're interested in learning, check that out. I only teach them in the summertime because it is too hard to do it when the UV rays are so low in the winter.
So you talk about history being a big inspiration for you. Do you have like a certain process you approach when you're going for art? Is it more like experimental, or what does that kind of look like?
Like in putting like using different parts to put into my artwork?
Yeah, in thinking of what you're going to do next. Sorry.
It's become kind of this serendipitous process in a way. It started with the fact that I like to shop online too much. And so I would scour eBay for very fun things. And this is how a lot of my collection started. I have a large collection of old photographs from various eras. And I have old paper ephemera, like the library cards and the prescription paper and the various things like that. I have these collections that we're building because I was seeking them out. Well, eventually, people caught on to this. And so I have started then receiving things from people, whether it's photos from, maybe it's like a great aunt died and you have no idea what you want to do with those photos. Some people have given me those collections. Other people have found themselves in antique stores or other things like collections of old paper and things like that and thought, oh, I know someone who does stuff like that. So I've started receiving things. And my husband's not here, so he can't tell me no. But if you or someone you know has collections of photos or old paper or things that you have no idea what to do with and would like to give them another life, you can consider me. My cards are over there. Because I like to think that it's continuing to give it a new life in a way.
That's so special, especially that everyone, like, they trust you with those special treasures and to give them that new life.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and that's something I think about too is like, and now I have both the collection of photographs of my mother's parents who are both still alive, but my father has like hoarded things his entire life when it comes to photographs. So he's given me most of that. And then my father's side of the family, both of his parents have passed at this point. So my aunt gifted me all of their stuff. The historical archives and things like that, like all of their old photos and letters and things like that. So I've started it with my own family, and that's obviously very special because it's people I know and care about. But at the same time, some of these things, like the ones I collect on eBay, it's like I have Ethel Rosenberg's, all of her elementary photos from the 1940s now. And I have no idea who this woman is or where she's from, but she's very special to me at this point. Because they're mine and I have them, and I probably have one of the only copies of them to still exist. So, you keep them in there.
Oh, that's so sweet. She's part of the family.
A little bit, yeah.
So, what is it like in your day-to-day life being an artist and also working in the art world, like fostering that sense of community for other artists?
Sometimes you want nothing to do with art by the end of the day. And that's okay. So back when I worked at an art museum, prior to that, I loved going to art museums. Every time I would travel, that's where I would go, to galleries, things like that. For the 6 years I worked at an art museum, that was like the last thing I ever wanted to do was see more art. Coming and then working with artists is so great, and to be able to exercise that and to do the like art administrative side of things that I know really well is really exciting. And sometimes I come home and I shut my studio door and I'm like, later. But at the same time, it's also really exciting and really fulfilling because I get to have these conversations with really wonderful artists, and also being somewhat new to this area still. I'm meeting people, I'm learning things, and I'm getting to be really, like, I have my cup very filled by the conversations I have with people and the artists that I get to meet. But also even in the theater side of things, I very much did not involve myself with theater, performance art, or things like that. And now I'm learning all sorts of that thanks to this job that I have. So it really does, it can serve as a really great form of inspiration, but it can also make you very tired at the same time, which is it's the balance of it.
All right, we're going to open it up to questions. Who has a question for Emma?
If I have some old family photos that I would like a collage made out of. Could you do that?
Yeah, I'll give you my card when we're done with this. We can talk.
All right. Any other questions?
I do take commissions. I take them sparingly, though, so I will only take projects that I find interesting or I feel like we could vibe really well on. The family history type things, I think, are something that I could do some justice to. So I don't want to paint your dog.
On that note, can you tell us what things really inspire you with art?
Yeah. I have always been encouraged to be a creative person thanks to some very wonderful and supportive parents that I have. After a while, I realized that I wanted to see a very specific type of thing come into the world, and I had the power and the tools to do it. So a lot of times the things that I create are things where my words have failed me and I want to be able to express it in some way. So one of my favorite genres, and she's going to hate that I'm going to say this, of my art, I like to put it in, is stuff that would make my mom go, ugh. Because I like to make things kind of weird. I like to make things a little strange. Obviously, I brought a lot of examples of art that I've made that kind of fits more into a beautiful kind of realm, but I love to make things that kind of make people think a lot too, and that does not get you a lot of collectors when it comes to an artist trying to make money, but that's okay because the things that I create I can write really well about and I feel very passionate about. So really, that's a roundabout way of saying it's me. I am inspired a lot by my own feelings and how I'm trying to communicate with the world. So
I see there's a lot of artists in attendance here. With your experience in the administration side of art, are there some things that we could do or we could avoid to not be the kind of people that you wouldn't want to work with?
So when I started this job at the Holmes Theater, my wonderful boss, Grace, said, "I don't know how you can do this. Working with artists is so hard." And I was like, well, it helps to be one because you understand how they roll. And in my realm, that has just been, you learn to not care about nagging someone. Because I love you artists, and some of you are a little more on top of it than others, but some of you take forever to respond to things. And you have two deadlines in your brain, the deadline when something is actually due, and the one you tell them that's 2 weeks before. So you actually get all your stuff in on time. Really, the great thing about artists is that they're wonderful and creative, and sometimes they have the most beautiful way of communicating, but at the same time, not everybody wants to do the administrative side of their work. And so for artists, it really is, if you want to work with institutions, if you want to be able to try to make a career a little more successful or mobile or things like that, put a little effort into the administrative side of things. You're answering your emails, your communication, check your DMs on Instagram, things like that, and that'll go a long ways because those of us on the inside who are artists and know how to work with artists, we get it. I will bother you to death until I get what I need, but it also helps a little when it comes to communication.
Well, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for having
one
me.
last question. How can we as a community better support you?
Give me your old stuff. If you have a lead on some old stuff, not dump trucks worth, but if you see something at a garage sale, let me know. If you have a family member that's passed and you don't know what to do with their stuff, let me know. That's probably, I don't know. I'm still putting roots in this area and learning things, so I'm totally willing to take your stuff. So
She will also soon be in the market for a storage unit.
yeah. Oh, there's also that. My house is not big.
And then do you have social media or anything that people could follow you and learn more about your art?
Yes, currently I'm only operating an Instagram for my art that is eht.art. And then I'm working on a website that's ehtart.com. That is in progress. Sometimes the administrative side of things is not that easy. I get that. So that's where you can find me for now. And like I said, I have cards over on the table if you're at all interested in connecting. So,
all right. Well, thank you. Let's give a round of applause for Emma.
Feelings, nothing more. Sorry.
Tim will do his own intro.
That's my go-to.
Well, our next speaker needs no introduction. Tim Eggebraaten. Author, musician, keynote speaker. Is there anything you don't do? Former police chief?
We were just having that conversation where it's like, I love it all. I flunked a personality test. You can't flunk a personality test, but I took the Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory, MMPI, and the CPI, and all these personality inventories when I was getting into law enforcement. And I didn't get hired early on because they said I was making it up. And because it would say like, I would like to work in a flower shop. And I'm like, heck yeah, I'd work in a flower shop. And I'd like to drive a race car. Are you kidding me? How cool would that be? And so I would do it all. And then they'd say, well, you're being guarded. And I'm like, well, no, I seriously would do it all. And yeah, so there's, I try to keep my mind open to opportunities.
I'll keep my eye open for a race car for you.
Yeah, whatever. Yep, bring it on.
All right. So can you tell us a little bit about when you transitioned from working as a cop and going into keynote speaking and kind of what that looked like? What made you take the leap?
Yeah, absolutely. So going even farther back, even before kindergarten, I knew I was going to be a police officer. It was a calling for me. It was, there wasn't any question that I was going to go into law enforcement. And then 1992, I got my first opportunity here in Detroit Lakes to be a police officer. Loved it. It was a great place, great community. Got us hooked in this beautiful community. I loved my career. For most of my career, I'd be getting ready for work and I'd say, I get to go to work today. And I loved it. It was incredible. And then I was police chief here in Detroit Lakes for about 5.5 years and still loved it and had a great team. But I could feel like at age 48, I could feel like I was starting to get crusty, and I could feel that energy getting sapped out. And I'd always tell people, if you don't like the path you're on, change your path. And it's really easy to say when you're talking to somebody else, well, just change your path. It's not that easy when it's you and you have this stable career and you have health insurance and you have the securities that go along with a stable job. But I was starting to feel myself really getting into a place where I didn't want to be. And I love people, but I could feel myself not loving people. And so I recognized at 48 that in Minnesota, 50 was the optimum, or 50 was the first eligible age that you could retire and gather some sort of pension from the state of Minnesota. And so I took a penalty for leaving at age 50. I didn't care. I don't do numbers. I don't do math. I just knew that if I stuck around to 55, that I would not be this optimistic, happy person. And so at age 48, I made the decision that at 50 I was going to retire. And at age 50, I knew that I was going to be entertaining. I've been doing a one-man band thing forever, and I love it, and I'll do it till I can't. And so I knew at age 50 that I was going to be doing that. And then right before I retired, like June of 2016, about 6 months before I retired, the chief of police from Burnsville down in the Twin Cities, chief called me up and said, brother, hey, would you come down and share your leadership journey with my leadership team? And I thought, yeah, why not? And I'd hired speakers before. I didn't know much about professional speaking. Like, how does it work? Do you get paid? How does the whole thing work? And so I grabbed my guitar, I went down to Burnsville, and I was in uniform, and it was the command staff for the Burnsville Police Department for about 18, 20 men and women. And they had just been involved in an officer-involved shooting. I didn't know any of this. And one of the sergeants there that day, the grand jury was convening that day to see if they were going to charge him criminally or not. And so it was the tension was thick. And I show up with my guitar like, hey, everybody. And I have no doubt they were thinking, oh, crap, we're going to hold hands and sing Kumbaya. And so for an hour, we rode this roller coaster where these men and women were attentive. We laughed, we sang a couple songs, we cried, we laughed again. And I got in the parking lot after this presentation and I was shaking, and I called Denise, my wife. I said, I've just found my second calling. I mean, kindergarten, it was a cop all my life. I knew I was going to be a cop. I knew my career as a law enforcement officer was ending. I wasn't 100% sure what I was going to be when I grew up. And so to have that epiphany to say, my words and my music made a difference to that command staff, that leadership team in the Burnsville Police Department. What if I did that? And so I didn't know anything about speaking, and so I hired a speaking coach because I knew at age 50 I didn't have 15 years to build this thing organically. And so I hired a speaking coach. I became a member of the National Speakers Association. I surrounded myself with professional speakers of all different levels, and I started just finding audiences and sharing this message, and it's a message of optimism and a message of hope and a message of how do we navigate this life and the challenging parts of life and still look for the beauty that's out there, because the beauty is everywhere. And so I've just found this beautiful career now where I get to travel all over the country, and I do about 50 presentations a year around the country, and I'm still doing my music. I'll do my music literally till I can't, and then I'll be like Willie Nelson, and I'll still do it, and just show up. But it's been such a wild ride, and each day is a gift, and each day is a promise of what we're going to bring to others. And I truly look at it that way, when I'm on stage, and if I'm doing a music gig. When I was police chief here, I was doing about 130 music gigs a year, so 4-hour gigs, and police chief, 2 of our 3 sons were still in school, and so people tell me now, they're like, they see on social media that I was in wherever speaking, Detroit, Michigan speaking, and Tim, you're so busy. I'm like, you should look at my 2016 calendar. That was busy, but each day it's like, it's so exciting and it's invigorating, and my stress level now, if all the stars aligned, if all of the stuff hit the fan at the same time, and I was having a stressful day, it would be maybe a level 2 out of 10. And where, in law enforcement, I was just floundering around every day in like a level 8 out of 10 every single day. And so I think a big part of it was just finding that community of like-minded people, the speakers, and that support, and like what Project 412 is doing with this whole entrepreneurial focus is just, it's mind-numbing, it's blowing, and it's just so amazing how we can build each other up and help each other. Woo! Take a breath, Tim. More coffee.
Well, everyone knows you now as a keynote speaker, but I want to know about when you started, when you were like, I'm assuming at some point having to like hit the pavement, pitch yourself, kind of get the word out there about yourself. What was that like?
Yeah, it was challenging. And I like probably most of us, I have that voice in my head, that doubting voice, that voice that says, you're an imposter, who are you? And so I try to squash that voice as much as possible, but I have it. I have that imposter syndrome. And so when I started speaking professionally, I'd throw up in my mouth, like when people would say, well, what are your fees? And I'd be like, and why would they pay me? And so having that whole idea of selling myself, because I'm the product and my message is the product. And so that was a big step. And then again, finding that community, people from DL, I would come to different things, and Don Duncan from Detroit Lakes here, or Fertile, but living in DL now. I went to a marketing class with Don, and I was struggling. I was like, well, what's my identity? Who am I? Am I the singer? Am I the cop? Am I the speaker? And it was, and she said, yes, you're all of that. Why would you? My law enforcement career, when I first retired, I kind of pushed away from that. And I was like, well, I don't know if I want to identify as a police officer. And it's like, well, no, that was a huge part of my formative life. And then the entertainer piece, when I started entertaining and singing around the community here, and I was still the night patrol sergeant, one of the first moving parts of that, I had 3 young kids in my back seat and clients of mine, and they were all intoxicated, and they said, which cop are you? And I said, I'm Eggebraaten. And I was waiting for the barrage of insults, and they said, wait a minute, are you the singer? And I thought, oh, yes, I am, I guess. And so that's the thing, is like each one of us has a gift. We have many gifts, and not everyone's comfortable like sharing those gifts, or maybe we haven't identified them ourselves. And each one of us has a story that other people would benefit from hearing, but not everybody's comfortable sitting in a chair with a camera and with people, or standing on a stage and sharing that story. And with my career and with my life experiences, my mistakes that I've made, the good, bad, and the ugly, has gotten me to this point. And so I feel like it's an honor to share that story, to share those experiences, in the hopes that the listener, whether they're watching it on a TV screen or a computer screen, or they're here, or somebody in passing, the hopes that the listener can glean something from that and maybe make their day a little bit better. So that's my purpose. I feel like that's why I'm here, to share these experiences in an entertaining way, but still a serious way. And so when I'm doing my keynote presentation, it's usually 60 to 75 minutes, and we're riding that roller coaster. We're picking and grinning on the guitar because it's different. And they're like, like when I do a conference, they're looking at the brochure like, who's this clown with the guitar? And it says he was a police chief. That's interesting. I'm going to pay attention because he's got a guitar. And then we just ride that journey together, and we're laughing and singing and crying and laughing, because that's how life is. We laugh, sing, cry, laugh in life. And I want to share that with other people.
I love that. And the guitar is kind of like an icebreaker almost. Like it helps people let their guard down and engage with you more. That's really cool. So what advice would you give for people who haven't known since they were a kid what their calling is? Like what should they be looking for? Or what things should they be leaning into to kind of continue on that path?
I intentionally think of that a lot, because I get wrapped up that, well, everybody should know what they do or what they love and, what their passion is. But the reality is that many people don't. They don't know what they want to be when they grow up, or they're not sure what their gifts are. And so I would just, for me, mindfulness and meditation helped me a lot, like really slow things down, slow that brain of mine down, and rest with who I am and where I'm going. And I was talking to Amy earlier about like manifestation, that it was probably 5 years ago. We were at something in Arizona and at this beautiful casino, and there was a group there that was having a conference. And I said, you know what? I'm going to speak here at this, casino, and in May I'll be there. I'll be at that casino conference center in wherever, Arizona, and it's just like. So I think when you slow things down and when you really get to know yourself and what fuels you, what fires you up, and then how that can help other people. I think if you're totally focused on you, then that's where you lose a lot. But if you're focused on others, and then how can what I have help other people? When I wrote my book, that was a very similar path, and that whole who am I to write a book? I barely read books, and so who am I? Who am I to share a story that, I'm not a mental health expert. I'm not an expert on hardly anything. And but when I started writing it 8 years ago, it would get fired up, and I would write a lot, and then I would just lay dormant for years. And so I finally came out a year ago. I was scared to death. I thought, this is stupid. Who am I? And so Denise and I hit submit together when we sent it off to the publisher, because it was a big deal for her and me. And it was, okay, well now it's out there. So like 3 days after I published the book and it was available, a friend of mine called me. He's the chief of police in a big agency. He said, brother, thank you. And I needed to hear that. And I was like, okay, well, then the monkey was off my back. I sold a book. And the bar was set really low. I thought, woo, here we go. And, but it made a difference. And that was like, okay, well, so the voices. I want to share one more quick story about those voices and those, because they still creep in. In November last year, I was sitting on our place. We have a place in Mesa. And I was sitting on our deck and looking at the beautiful blue sky and the palm trees, and it's a 55 plus community. And I'm thinking, people travel here to escape winter or whatever, and it's paradise, but still there's negative Nellies, and there's like chronic toxic people there. And so I sat down in my chair, I took my phone out, and I started to note, and I thought, I want to share my message with these 55 and up communities. So I wrote 55 plus communities, positive optimism, or whatever it was. And then as soon as I wrote that note, or wrote the title of the note, those thoughts came in my head. I thought, this is stupid. What if nobody comes to these things? And I was just like, and as soon as I thought that, I was thinking that, and this woman was walking by the street right in front of our place, and she said, hey, Tim. And I don't know who she is. I mean, I've obviously met her last year or whenever, but I said, oh, hi. And I said, how was your summer? And she said, you know what? 2 new eyes, 2 new hips. I beat cancer. I am, I can, I will. And I was looking at her like, what now? And this is literally, I have this note open on my phone and I'm thinking, this is stupid. Who's going to come? And like, there she is. And so I have this I am, I can, I will. It's a big part of my branding. And I have a big sign in front of our house. And she said, Tim, the song you wrote, the story about your mom, that got me through it this summer, that got me through everything I went through. And I thought, and she turned around and she kept walking. And she said, look out, world, here I come. So so it's like a 45-second interaction with this woman. And I'm sure my jaw was dropped. And I'm like, what just happened? And that's, if we're open to it, if we're like recognizing these people around us and recognizing the gifts that we have, the answers are there. And I'm sure that there's, I've been hit by 2x4s in the face. It feels like just give me a sign, just anything. And then, oh, this is dumb. I'm not worthy. And then all of a sudden something like that happens. And, it was mind blowing, but it happens all the time. And if we're open to it, our answers are there. We just have to silence that inner critic that we have and listen to it, and then take that leap. And it was a leap for me to leave law enforcement at 50, the secure job, the amazing team I had at the DLPD, city council, all of that stuff. To leave that and to enter this journey of entrepreneurship that I know nothing about. So surrounding myself with people, now having 3 sons that are entrepreneurs and their wives and significant others. And when we were in Arizona just a few weeks ago, we met for coffee, a whole bunch of us, our family, and it was like having a mastermind group. And we share goals and aspirations and, okay, how are we going to get there? How can we help you? And that's what you're doing with 412. So find your community. You don't have to do it alone. You shouldn't do it alone. Find those people that are out there that are going to help you, and then you can help them. And it's just like, lean on me. It's all that going on and on. Dang, I can talk.
I debated bringing my son's tiny ukulele today.
That would have been awesome.
But I don't know any chords to start you up. So it would have been very uncomfortable.
Next time
we'll plan. So if any of you have been to one of these events before, Tim is my go-to guy for questions. He's always got an awesome question. And so now it's his turn to be on the other side. So who has a good question for Tim?
Thank you. Everybody drive safe.
Hi, Tim. Okay, so I would say objectively, you get out into other communities more than a lot of us. So when you're out in these communities, what have you seen that I think there's a lot of really great things about DL, but what have you seen for organizations or resources or things that you feel like we could benefit bringing back to Detroit Lakes?
I do that comparison game a lot. So Hutchinson is a community that I do a lot with, and so I try not to compare too much, but I do appreciate that question of resources, and I see a lot of what Detroit Lakes is doing, like this whole downtown area in the last 10 years, or I don't know. It's different. If somebody came here 15 years ago and thought what they thought about Detroit Lakes and they came here now, it's different. It's got a different feel. So I would think it would be the same thing as what I was just talking about, that finding your community, finding that network. So like at the theater, when you get to go to other conferences or whatever for theater people, and you're picking ideas and you're finding those people, that community of people. And so I think what we can do as a community, as supporters, is not be. We can question and we can challenge, but instead of quickly jump into that, this is stupid, this is never going to work, why would we do that? Instead of doing that, as a community, we can be more inquisitive and ask questions and say, well, what would it look like if we started doing, paintings on old brick wall, and what would it look like if we brought these humongous trolls into the community, and like, why not? Instead of asking, I remember vividly when the community center, when they were going to build and redo the homes, and there were so many people, oh, stupid, why are we wasting money on this old building? Well, look at it. And so I think if we challenge ourselves to ask those questions, instead of right away saying, oh, this is stupid, it'll never work, open your mind up a little bit. And there are people willing to do the work and willing to do the research, but don't be that negative Nancy or that person that's just, nah, it's never going to work. Ask questions. Help.
All right. Any other questions? No one? Wow, you lucked out.
That's right, I did.
How did that happen?
Operators are standing by for your questions.
All right. So 2 questions. One, what does it look like right before you go out to speak? How do you get amped up?
I put myself in the seat of the audience, and every time when I'm doing a music gig or my speaking keynote, if I get to the venue the night before, which I like to, I'll go into the venue and I'll sit in that seat. I'll breathe in the room, and then I'm very present. I focus on that audience, like what are their struggles that they're going through, and what am I going to say that might be able to help them in their struggles, and their challenges, and And then like an hour before the presentation, I don't get nervous at all because probably 20 years ago, I used to get nervous before a presentation because it was about me. And I would be like, oh, what if I goof up, or what if I say the wrong thing, or play the wrong chord, or forget the words, or whatever. And then it dawned on me that it has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with the audience. And so an hour before I shut off my phone, I go into silent mode on my phone. And then I focus. I'm very present. And like, how am I here to serve? How am I here to serve my audience? And what can I do? And I breathe. And I was hypnotized in my freshman year in college. I was given a color. And it's so weird, and I still say that color before I sing the national anthem at Wee Fest or a Twins game, and it's just like, poof, and I just my energy gets so laser focused. It's weird. It's blue is my color, if you're wondering.
I want the name of the hypnotist.
He's long gone, but they all do that. They put something in. It's just a mind. It's just, it helps you like get laser focused, and it's nothing magical or mystical. It's just like mindfulness and meditation, and but it helps you get super present. So that's my main goal, is to just like be super present. And how is something that I'm going to say, how can that help somebody else in whatever they're going through? Because we'll hear the message over and over and over again from different formats and everything, but it always hits us at a time when we need it. And isn't that like when we hear somebody speak, it could be the same message, but then something about it hits us when we need it, and then that's when it can make an impact on us as individuals. But then when we get that feeling, then turn that around and then act on it, instead of just like, oh, that was so good, what that person or that song that hit me in a way that I'd never heard it before. So what are you going to do about it? Well, do something about it. I mean, like, put that into action.
All right. So everybody's ready to do that, right? They're all nodding.
And a bold prediction, 2025 right now, in February of 2026, 1 year from now, we're going to be celebrating Minnesota Vikings world champions, because this is the year, I'm telling you. That's optimism.
So in closing, how can we support you as a community, as an author and a speaker?
I think just support each other, and just because again, it's not about me as the artist or the performer. I'm going to keep pushing myself to go into uncomfortable areas and just like push myself mentally because of that woman walking down the street, and I'm gonna push away those imposter syndrome thoughts. And so I think just support each other in their endeavors. When you see local art, purchase their art. Not only purchase their art, but like ask them, well, where are you coming from with that? And support each other, support the local businesses, your Main Street. Get involved with the 412 crew here. They're rocking and rolling. And so I think if you're wondering what you can do in the community, go to the library and hang out there and be a supporter of all that. And there's so much going on here and in our state, and you can get into that us versus them mentality, but fight that us versus them. Because if we sit down and we start breaking down like that us versus them, if we start breaking down and asking specific questions, I think we'll find that we're a lot more alike than that us versus them lets us be.
Well, thank you for your time and sharing your story with us.
I'm here till Thursday, so.
Yeah. He braved the Minnesota winter. So come back.
Thank you.